members. This is about time. The quorum is there. And I'll call the meeting to order. After the last meeting, the Secretariat has not received any information papers. So on to the next item. Items for discussion at the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 27th of October 2026. There are two items. The first one is Suntin Technopole, Phase 1, Stage 1, and also the Sampo-Shu Wetland Park, second Hongham Station, and the Promenade land resumption proposal. Any questions? If not, we so endorse this item. Let's move on to the next item. Funding applications for development at Tseung Area 137, Phase 1, and off Tseung Area 132. Just a reminder that this is a funding proposal, or this has to do with the funding proposal. If members would like to speak, please, if you speak on a matter in which you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interests, please disclose the nature of the interest before speaking. Members who wish to speak, please press the button. I'd like to invite the Permanent Secretary to brief us on the paper. Chairman, as we said a moment ago, this paper is in relation to a funding proposal regarding Tseung 137 and 132. Area 137 is to the south of the Tseung Park. We have already gone through all the statutory procedures, and we'd like to turn this area into a new community, basically for residential development with 50,000 residential units. We're seeking funding for Area 137 in connection with site formation and the engineering infrastructure and the detailed design. I would like to seek funding for this purpose. And the engineering work is not really complex, but there is a time limit. We have earmarked 9 hectares of land to the URA for flat development. So much for Area 137. On the other side of Area 137 is Area 132. We are proposing reclamation of 20 hectares. Now, about 2 or 3 years ago, we did come before the panel. We also went to the district council. And after consultation, we come up with this proposal, which is considered to be the best. We have gone through the statutory procedures regarding reclamation, the roles, and so on. Why 20 hectares of reclamation? That's because we need to accommodate 5 public facilities that are needed by the district, and also that are needed for the public facilities. They need a frontage for the operation. So the other funding is for the reclamation of 20 hectares together with roads and the infrastructure. The 2 funding proposal is $9.4 billion. Subject to the panel's endorsement, by November and December, we'll be taking the project to the PWSC and the FC for this to be undertaken. I defer to the CEDD, Marco, for a more detailed explanation. Chairman. At the beginning of 2023, we consulted the development panel and the district council, and in November 2024, we came up with the enhancement proposal for consultation with the district council in Tseung. There are 6 facilities. There were 6 facilities. Now there are 5, and the site for reclamation would be reduced from 6 hectares to 5 hectares. And we will be enhancing Area 132. Now, these 4 enhancement proposals are incorporated in this funding proposal. 137, the Clearwater Bay Park pedestrian link, and the opening up of the Cham Chao Pier, that will be for the next batch of funding. There will also be a government building with public market there. All these statutory procedures have been completed in February. Area 137 will be from north to south. For the first phase, as it was said a moment ago, to the northern part, there will be a 9-hectare site for the URA flat residential development. We are seeking funding for 137 Phase 1. That's the Purple Park. That's a 7-hectare site formation and the engineering infrastructure in support of the 9-hectare URA first phase development. For the remaining part of the work, they will be covered by the next phase of funding. They will be indicated in brown with hatched surface. Area 137 covers 7 hectares of site formation that's indicated in the colored portion. There will be infrastructure, cycle path, drainage, sewage, water supply systems. As to Area 132, there is a geographical requirement for frontage operation, and the operation will need to have the access to the water. And we are talking about electricity facilities, construction waste handling facility, and refuse transfer station. For the other 2, they will be replacing the facilities of similar nature in Area 137. And they are the public field transfer facility as well as the concrete batching plant. They are 1 kilometer away from the residential dwellings. Will resort to a slope cutting and lawn dredging method to create 20 hectares of land by way of reclamation. And there will be a 2.5 kilometers of marine viaduct linking up with Area 132, new reclamation, and there will be engineering infrastructure, and in 2029 the sites can be handed over to the public facilities. First, in 2029, electricity facilities will go ahead first. Now, this is at the 20 hectares. Over here, there will be a sloping seawall. The other side would be a vertical seawall. That's because we need this to facilitate the docking of vessels. And this is some of the plans there. We have 2.5 kilometers of marine viaduct linking up with the bridge and the Jiangnam Highway. To benefit the residents there, We are proposing the Two King Lake Park, which will be completed in 2030. And from Area 132 reclamation area, there will be a new trail and also an enhanced trail to be covered. And this will be completed progressively from 2029. Our idea is to have some signage, some information boards to introduce the site. There will be photo-taking spots and also some signage to facilitate the tourists, to let them know more about the fortifications at Devil's Peak and the ex-quarry. As I said earlier, the 7913CL, that's 137 Phase 1, it will cost $1.85 billion. 7.895CL, Area 132, it will cost $7.64 billion, totaling $9.49 billion or thereabout. Subject to the panel's support, we'll take the project to the PwC as well as the Finance Committee for funding endorsement. Thank you very much. Right, now throw the floor open for questions. Ms. Christine Fong, Mr. Chris Yip, Vice Chair, Mr. Kenneth Lau, Mr. Lee Chung Keung, Mr. Lam Chun Sing, Mr. Augustin Wong, Mr. Aaron Bok, and last but not least, Mr. Lau Kao Keung. 4 minutes, Ms. Christine Fong. Chairman, 4 questions. In terms of transport, Area 137 provides 50,000 housing units. There will be an additional population of 135,000. The first population intake will be in 2031. How can the government make sure that the transport network will become available instead of putting people there first before transport facilities? What about the Zhongguanou South Line? Will it be connected with Hong Kong East to ease the traffic burden? I am more concerned about Area 132, the reclamation. The size will be reduced from 25 hectares to 20. The Zhongguanou South residents are very concerned about the 5 popular facilities like the concrete batching plant, the refuse transfer station, and the public fuel transfer facilities. They are concerned about odor and noise pollution. Now, we are talking about a marine viaduct, 2.5 kilometers. Will there be sufficient camera or surveillance camera to tackle the haulage vehicles polluting the area? And in terms of haulage, how much is it done by marine way? Can you snap up marine transportation to cut back on the land transportation or haulage? And also, will the government be making available more data in a transparent way to facilitate supervision? The Yao Tong concrete batching plant is leaving really a bad taste in our mouth. In this tendering exercise, how can the government make sure that the batching plant will be completely confined? And to justify this amount of money, would there be any administrative means like the concrete mixers? How can you make sure the concrete mixers avoid traveling into the downtown area? And if they have to, would they be required to apply for a permit? Would there be any Beidou satellite kind of surveillance to keep track of these haulage vehicles? And now with 2.5 kilometers away from the residential dwellings, are there any measures to mitigate the impact? A lot of questions, barrel of questions there. Permanent Secretary. Right, Chairman. Transportation, I defer to the TLB. And Mr. Leung, can fill us in on the marine viaduct. How can we mitigate the noise impact? Right, for the other question, let me take them. The members concerned about Area 132, the 5 public facilities impact on the residents nearby. Now, for these 20 hectares, the closest to the residential dwelling would be 1 kilometer. There are 5 public facilities, and depending on the facilities, there will be a number of ways that the administration can keep control of. Like, for example, there are a number of facilities prior to the operation, prior to the design, they will have to go through the EIA procedure. Now, in this procedure, the project proponents will have to propose certain mitigation measures to keep down on noise pollution and air pollution. That's point number 1. Second, there are, let's say, the concrete batching plant, there is a need for permit. And in the permit, the authorities can impose certain conditions on the operation. Third, let's stick to this concrete batching plant. Now, this is going to be going out for tender. The government can impose certain conditions to make sure that the operation won't have any negative impact on the neighboring residents. And you mentioned the surveillance, the supervision. Certainly, we will take this away and convey these to the relevant parties to make sure that there would be sufficient oversight. We will also be briefing the public on this. Perhaps I defer to my colleague, the director, before the TLB can supplement.
As for the 2.5 km link between Area 132 and the other bridge, actually, we have carried out environmental assessment procedures and confirmed that the plan fits the environmental requirements. And for people or vehicles going in and out of Area 132, under the plan, they can go through Cheongdam Highway and enter Kowloon without having to drive through the town center of Kwan. Bureau, please. Yes. Earlier on, in our announcement of the Hong Kong Transportation Blueprint, we actually had already looked at the land use information, including the potential population at Area 137. And we also look at the building of an extension of the MTR link or railway link or vehicular tunnel to ease the traffic congestion there, to extend from Tseung south to eastern Hong Kong. We found that it cannot really reduce the journey time, and because of the there's limited cost effectiveness in the project, and there are also technical difficulties. So, for example, the need to demolish a large amount of public facilities and nearby residential dwellings. So, therefore, in laying down the blueprint, we did not propose the construction of the cross-harbour transportation infrastructure. As for the southern extension of the Kwan line, it's proposed that it will be commissioned in 2034 to 2038. So we do advocate the use of railway services, and in line with the time when new populations will be housed in the new area. And we will strive to provide adequate public transportation facilities to align with the transportation needs. There could be temporary public transportation facilities to be set up, and we'll also offer various bus lines, transportation lines to meet the public needs. Next one is Chris Ip. I'm concerned about the planning for Area 137. Right now, you expect the future population to rely on the railway line and the one main road. But experience tells us that that's not ideal, definitely. Kwan line, the MTR line, because of a signaling problem, its service had to come to a halt. And road accidents always happen before, leaving Kwan an isolated island in a way. So if you want to rely on a main railway line and main roads to meet the future transportation needs, I think there is a huge potential risk to future populations. At the time of detailed planning, I think the government must address the transportation issue, and I hope that you can also have backup plans so that the future residents in Area 137 has more choices for transportation, including, for example, you should not just rely on extension of the Whampoa Road. And for the southern extension of the Kwan line, well, there have been accelerating problems. If there are to be 130,000 more people moving to the area, I'm sure there will be a huge potential risk to the MTR line. Data-wise, you may think that it should be able to cope, but please learn from what happened, the accidents that happened in the past, and don't avoid a repeat of the scenario where Kwan became an isolated island, and the people there living there cannot really return home as scheduled. So please let the public understand about your rationale for your planning. And there's also the mention by official about the MTR line that cannot be cross harbor by nature. But please do your study again. Including Lohas Park, there's a population of 200,000. If you don't have an independent cross-harbor railway line, then that runs contrary to the government policy of using rail link as the backbone of transportation. So now with this new opportunity, you may rethink the possibility. And as for the Connect Road for Area 137, can it be extended or connected with the Clearwater Bay Park? So I think you really need to seriously consider the options. Two questions, mainly concerning transportation. Yes, thank you for your views. In developing Area 137, you know that we have carried out the traffic impact assessment already. And with the southern extension of the Kwan line in the future, and also new roads being planned now, I'm sure they can cope with the traffic flow. You said that, well, statistics are one thing, but in terms of the systems, the entire resilience of the transportation system, whether we should give people more options, we agree, but you need also to look at the reality that what's feasible and what is not. Bureau colleagues explained that in the past we did consider the option of a cross-harbor southern extension of the MTR line, but there were difficulties after you cross the harbor where you can build a station, and do we need to demolish a lot of buildings, existing buildings, and does it really lead to a reduction in travel time? The answers are no. So we need to closely monitor the traffic situation first, and if there are other options that can further enhance the transportation network, then we are pleased to look into them. Well, if the railway option is not feasible, so at least road-wise, don't just rely on the extension of Whampoa Road. Touch wood. Should there be any collisions, then people will get stuck there, and the residents cannot return home after work. So that's definitely not ideal. So I made it very clear that there should be more considerations on your existing arrangement of one road, one railway line. Next one is Kenneth Lau, Vice Chairman. Area 137 and 132, the funding proposal, I would support them in principle. But in promoting such infrastructural development, the government must truly integrate the rural and urban areas and enhance the infrastructure, and there can be long-term support for the people living there. Okay, about sharing of infrastructure, it's mentioned in the paper that both areas will have a whole new sewage system. There will be freshwater and flushwater mains to be provided. But for such large-scale infrastructure, would you have adequate capacity to support the needs of nearby rural areas? For example, Clearwater Bay Park, there are villages nearby. Would they be connected to those sewage networks and water main networks? I don't want to see a street being equipped with the advanced sewage and water supply systems where the villages remain poorly served. So I know that the government, well, you have limited resources, but would you maybe bring in private investors to beef up the basic infrastructure so that villages can benefit? Permanent Secretary, on your view, the latest funding proposal or request covers Area 137 and 132. For their vicinity, there are no traditional villages. But I heard your view, Vice Chairman, your concern about, in Sai Kung, there are other traditional villages and who actually have needs for better sewage and water supply systems. So your point is noted and will reflect your concern to the colleagues at the Drainage Services Department. And C, for improving the services of villages, how they can do a better job. Next one is Lee Cheng-kung. Thank you, Chairman. I live in Cheung Kwan O. Lower Park has a population of almost 100,000. And if there is to be the future population of 130,000 in Area 137, which will be equal to population in 4 Taikushing. And Lower Park is like 10 Taikushing. But there are only 2 MTR stations running through Lower Park, Area 137, and there's only 1 out of 3 trains that take people out to the urban area. So I'm really concerned about future congestion. For example, especially during rush hours, people going to work and returning home in the evening. Should there be any signaling problem again, then going back to the area is a huge problem. If you just rely on one railway line, then Lower Park and Area 137 could face problems. So you need to have a backup plan. And just now, members mentioned about the Whampoa Road. That could be traffic congestion, furthering causing congestions, more congestions. So have you thought about building a pier in Area 137 or Lower Park so that there can be ferry services in cases of emergency? The pier may not need to have regular ferry services, but at least it can provide immediate help when needed. And Area 137, it should be, I think, commissioned or developed around the same time as the northern metropolis. So would you position Area 137 as a place for youth hostels or for elderly residential care homes? So maybe even elderly residents can buy their properties there? I think it's worth promoting such ideas so that there can be various types of residential developments for people of different ages. I think you can consider that. And my last question is about, as I said, for lorries going into the area, for Area 137, once it's completed, well, during the construction, there'll be a large number of trucks going through the area, particularly the Whampoa Road. So would that lead to noise nuisance and environmental hazards along Whampoa Road? So for the third question, I'll ask Director Lund to answer. Your question, you rightly pointed out that Area 137 is surrounded by the sea, and to the south there is a pier. Should we keep the waterway? I will consider that. And secondly, you talk about a variety of housing there in the area. As I said, Area 137, we are asking for money for the development, hovering 9 hectares for the Urban Renewal Authority under the flat for flat scheme. So this is a trial. We hope that in a new area there can be new flats built for people who are affected by urban redevelopment under the flat for flat arrangement in a new area. And you just now mentioned the possibility of having other types of housing. As you said, maybe housing for young people, youth hostels, or student hostels. I think for this we can consider, and near the time of completion, we'll see what we can do.
議員就問
Mr. Leung, well, the member asked about the haulage vehicles passing the area. Now, for Area 137, Area 132, it is basically a residential community. So 137 is a residential site, and there will be a bridge linking up with the Crossway Link. The haulage vehicles now are using Wampo Road and the town centre, and in future is going to be a vast improvement. Mr. Lee, I am an NED for the URA. Mr. Lam, well, for the timetable, Area 137 in 2031, it will take in population, and there will be the phase 2. It will be 2023, 24, and the population will start to move in there. You also mentioned the Tseung South line. It won't happen until 2034 to 38. So I don't think you can be really confident if the rail is going to be delayed. After 2038, there will be a vacuum, and many people are moving in, and they cannot use the public transport facilities. And also the Tseung Yao Tong tunnel. This will not be commissioned until 2039. Again, there will be a bit of a delay. Will this be expedited? We don't really want to see a vacuum in which the residents will have to wait for the transport facilities to become available. Second, now for these two projects, you have the EM&A in the funding proposal. Now there is a necessity for that for massive projects like this. So what indicators do you have in terms of water quality, air quality, the impacts on people, on the ecology? If in the course of work we fail to measure up to the target, what remedial measures would there be? How can you supervise the contractors to make sure that they are up to scratch? Permanent Secretary? I defer to Mr. Leung for the second question. For the first question, the member is concerned about the transport and traffic. In Area 137, population intake would be in 2031, and the second batch would be in 2033. We haven't quite reached a stage where there is a massive number of people moving in, which will happen progressively after 2033. Couple of years after 2033 before we see a massive intake of population. We'll be staying in close communication with the TLB, and we will be making plans in advance regarding the detailed design of the southern extension. We will maintain close communication on that score. Now, the member may be concerned about people moving in before the rail extension. Now, these people will have to rely on the land transport. Now, we are making available the site for the URA. There will be PTI to be built. There would be buses, minibuses, ferrying the residents to the Lohas Park MTR station. That's the arrangement we have in mind for now. Mr. Leung, about the environmental monitoring. Now, these are large projects. We have Area 137 Phase 1 and also Area 132 under the EIA requirement. In the course of work, we will continuously monitor the water, air, and dust pollution. We'll ask the consultants to keep an eye on the impacts on the neighboring residents. There would be monitoring points. The data can be made available to members and the district council to make sure that we fall within the environmental requirements. Mr. Wong, Area 132 reclamation. Now, this is a large project. You must have done an EIA assessment. What are the major issues identified in the EIA report? Air, noise would be the issues. Now, certainly the water would be affected. Are there in particular measures? Now, you have the eco tiles. Can you explain a little bit more about the eco tiles in the seawall? Director? Chairman, indeed, we did conduct an EIA report regarding water, air, and all the rest of it, and all of them proved to be in line with the requirements. You mentioned any points of concern. Before we started the EIA, we did invite the ACE to conduct a site visit and brief members on the areas of concern. I can report to members that the ACE members are concerned about the relocation of the coral reef. I can defer to Marco for the details. Marco? Chairman, thank you. Now, in terms of coral reef, we did have an EIA report, and earlier we also had a detailed survey on the coral colonies. There are certain species that we need to liaise with the EPD and the AFCD before we start the relocation. We have already submitted some enhancement plans to the departments for endorsement. We'll make sure that the species, coral species that are suitable for relocation will be relocated to other marine areas for their continued growth. We do have a whole raft of plans which have already been endorsed. We make sure that with the relocation of the coral reef, we will then start with the marine work to make sure that the water quality will not be compromised. We also did conduct some hydraulics study to make sure the water quality would be up to scratch. Eco tiles. Right, eco tiles. The idea is that on a slope, on a vertical surface, we allow some room for the holes to hold the seawater during the tides. and the marine life can still survive there, like small fish and also small crabs. They can survive in these little holes in the eco tiles. So in the sloping seawall or vertical seawall, we will be able to simulate some natural shoreline for more marine species to survive there. Now, with this idea in the seawall, we will achieve this particular effect. The eco tiles are tiles that can accommodate water for the marine species to survive. Mr. Aaron Bock, Chairman, I am a director of a one-man consultancy company and NED for 2 construction companies. A couple of questions, if I may. Members have raised a question about the traffic and transport. Area 137, there will be 50,000 residential units. The Wanpo Road alone would not be enough. So there must be some other transport facilities, not least the railway linking up preferably with the Hong Kong Island. Area 132, this costs $7-something billion. There is the trail from Tseung to Legislative. Now this is an additional element. What percentage is this out of $7.6 billion? We don't really want to see a too high a percentage for this extra work. And enclosure 4, there is the cross section. Now you have the DCM, the deep cement mixing, to strengthen the marine mud. Are you talking about underneath the seawall? And the main reclamation will not be resorting to DCM because it is terribly expensive. Permanent Secretary, I defer to Mr. Leung regarding the pedestrian link from Tseung and Legislative, the percentage out of the total scheme of things. I remember about $10 million or something. And for the DCM, deep cement mixing, what location would this be used for? The member mentioned the transport and transport infrastructure, and this is rightly of concern to members. Now we do have a plan covering the southern link. I don't think it is feasible to take it across the harbour. The member mentioned how we can come up with more ideas to make sure that the transport network would be designed in such a way that should there be accidents, people will not be stuck in Tseung, and more can be considered in this regard. Mr. Leung. Chairman, thank you. Now, for the link between Tseung and Legislative, it doesn't cost a lot of money. It is within 5%. All the details will be sent out in the paper to the PWSC. Now, this indeed is in response to members' suggestion to improve the hiking trail. And the residents, other than the promenade, will also enjoy seafood at Legislative. As to the DCM, the deep cement mixing, it does cost quite a bit of money, so we will not implement this where necessary. It's only near the shore that we will do this to optimize the resources. Mr. Lau Kau-Keung, Chairman, in response to public demand, the government is proposing enhancement to Area 137 and 132, and this is commendable. In the paper, Paris 1, 4, and 6, in Area 137, near the railway station, there will be a public market at the government building, and the population intake will take place in 2031. Now, how soon will these public facilities become available? Will the government be providing the public transport first before moving population in? And also, these two areas are by the waterfront, and the pedestrian linkage will be improved. And the government is going to be developing the Tit Cham Chao Pier for public use. Now, what is the progress there? And in terms of tourism, would this be incorporated into the entire project? Thank you.
3 points. Right, on your question, firstly, your concern about the public market. We're proposing that it will be in Area 137 in the integrated complex near the proposed railway station. I understand that you don't want the future residents to wait too long before they can have access to the market. We will bring this concern to our discussion with the EFHD. And you also asked about pedestrian connectivity, which is also included in the funding proposal. And you asked about the pier in Chamchao. But that is outside of the plan for this stage. For Area 137, there are also other funding requests which we'll come back with for the other facilities. And also your point about tourism arrangement in planning for Area 137. We actually were resident-oriented, knowing that there will be tens of thousands of people moving to the area. You know, there are mountains and sea in the area, and how can we turn it, which is mainly a residential area, but to connect it with the famous trails nearby in Kwan. So in the future stages of development for Area 137, we will by then look at what trails can be created to link up Area 137 with the Clearwater Bay Country Park. So for the pier and water facilities, we would try to enhance the waterfront to create a more livable, pleasant living environment. And to its south, the Tichanchao Pier, that actually could open the way for all kinds of water transport, maybe. And that should be conducive to growth in tourism and provide convenience for future residents. Thank you. Very clear answers. Next one, Chong Ho Fong. Page 11 of the paper, there's a map showing that in the future, to Kangland Park, there will be basketball courts, volleyball parks and so forth, handball parks and so forth. But looking at the paper of the Sai Kung District Council on the same plan, there will be 2 badminton courts and pickleball courts. So your latest plan, has it changed anything, or is it not as detailed as the other plan? Pickleball is so popular lately, but many residents don't like to have such a court in where they live because that could be noise generated by the players. So are you having any plans to avoid noise nuisance? And also want to ask about traffic arrangements. Area 132, there will be a 2.5 km marine viaduct connected with the Cheongnam Highway, and so that heavy vehicles would not have to go through the downtown area of Kwan. But you are expecting 103,000 people to move into Area 137, and there will be various public facilities, including field facilities and using Area 132. There could be lots of heavy vehicles going to that area. So during busy hours, have you got any estimates that for the people going into the area and also the traffic of the heavy vehicles going to Area 132, would that cause serious congestion problems? Would you first build the connectivity road first before you have the reclamation, or the other way around? Because if you don't have the reclamation done, so how can the heavy vehicles enter the area? And for Area 137 is going to apply for $1.8 billion, and there will also be site formation for 7 hectares of land. So the whole area of 137 occupies 1.8 hectares. And you're saying that you apply for more funding as time goes. 101.3 hectares required a site formation fee of $20 billion. I want to know, looking ahead, in the Public Works Subcommittee, when you submit your proposals to them, could you offer us any comparative figures on the cost of similar projects? Ms. Ho, on your first question about the Tseung Ling Park, the court layouts, you seem to find that what's in our paper differs from what's in the paper given to the Tseung District Council. My colleague can supplement, explain later. Pickleball now is a concern. It is a concern now. As for the noise that it can generate to nearby residents, and there are different views within the Tseung District Council as well. So I think that we need to look further into that option first. So therefore, we did not include them in our paper. But LCSD colleague can supplement later on. And you talk about your concern about the transportation arrangements. Area 132 itself, why is it that we have to have reclamation for the various facilities? Because they need to those facilities have to rely a lot on marine traffic. They may use roads, they may use that, but to a large extent they will need to rely on marine transport. Given that, so they may not actually lead to huge congestion on the roads, nearby roads. And also, as Mr. Leung said, the reclamation of 20 hectares will cover or connect with roads, so that through the Jeonnam Tunnel, people or drivers can go to the urban area without going through the downtown area or urban area of Kwan. Oh, whether we will build road first or reclaim the sea first, but we will go for reclamation first, so that the materials can be transported by sea to build the public facilities, and then the viaduct will be built. Your third question about estimates, any estimates on the outstanding amount needed for our future developments? I think I'd suggest that we don't make the estimates now, because we haven't come to the detailed design for the entire area. I think the director and his colleagues need to look back at what more infrastructural works will be needed, and if there's to be more site formation, what details need to be looked into. So we need to have the basis first before we can come up with more realistic estimates. So any supplement from LCSD? Thank you, Chairman. As for Tseung Ling Park in March, LCSD and the other government department consulted the Tseung District Council. We heard from their members. Most of them support the building of the pickleball court, but there are also worries that residents may find that there's noise nuisance. We divided the Tseung Ling Park to northern and the southern portion. The northern portion is closer to residential areas, so that's where the quieter facilities will be built. But we also heard from residents that the outdoor pickleball court can generate noise, so we are now going through various views first, and in our detailed design stage, we'll consider various factors in one go and look at the demand for various facilities and the impact on the environment. Once we have finished our detailed design, we'll consult the district council again. Next one is Kwok Foo Young. Looking at the details for Area 137 and 132, that is back in 2023, the development outline was already proposed. So 3.5 years have passed. I know that the projects are complex and you need time to discuss or communicate with more stakeholders. But I hope that you can seize the time and to expedite the work. I've got 3 questions, one to do with policy. And firstly, all along, I'm concerned about the redevelopment of old areas. URA last year was given a land in Area 137, but in the paper, in paragraph 8, it just gives very brief information saying that the latest development will meet with the need for land. So, but at this stage, can you tell us any conceptual plan for the URA plan? When can the construction of the flats begin? And based on papers submitted by the URA to Electrical, in the first quarter of this year, the land will be made available, but it seems like that it will be behind schedule. So I'm just worried that if the piece of land has not been had site formation done, then that would delay the pace of urban redevelopment. So I want to know more about your latest timelines. And secondly, about the design, you can see that Area 137 and 132, their coastlines are straight, pretty straight. Last year, when the huge typhoon struck Hong Kong, the coastal area in Jurong Old South was heavily hit. There were also seawater rushed into restaurants along the coast. And in paragraph 12, you said that for the design of Area 132, you will have the seawall designed according to the latest Port Works Design Manual published by CEDD. But you know that climate change is getting more serious now. So I want to ask from you, what sort of concrete designs have you got in mind to mitigate the impact of typhoons or possibility of flooding and destruction caused to coastal facilities? And thirdly, about basic infrastructure. In Area 132, you want to build public fuel transport facilities, refuse transfer station in that area. But this kind of direction seems does not seem aligned with your direction of enhancing waterfront areas. I know that this is not an area for residential development, but I want to know, in your design work, before you do it, can you consider enhancing the facilities there and make it more in tune with the nearby hiking trails so that the facilities can blend into the nearby natural environment and have a more harmonious design? 3 questions. 3 questions. For the second one, I will ask CDD's Marco to answer. For your first point, you're concerned that for Area 137, the 9 hectares of land to be given to URA. What is the progress so far? Right now, it is actually going through the stage of detailed design. Flat for flat arrangement. Well, that's a policy of URA, and right now is usually is when a resident has obtained the compensation, and then have a flat in return. But we are now offering a new idea. Instead of getting monetary compensation, the affected residents can straight move into a new flat built in the new area, so as to attract people who have lived in an area for so long, to encourage them to move to a new area. So you must have attractive design in a new area, not just in terms of the size of the flats, but also the nearby facilities. For urban development projects, often elderly people, a lot of elderly people are involved, so we might need to, in the new flats, provide services to help the elderly people have recreation and look after their own health. So URA right now is working on the detailed design. The first population for Area 137 should move in 2031. So if we were to build the housing complex for flat scheme, then I think around 2027, that is 4 years beforehand, it should start. And your third point about Area 132, the public facilities to be built, I think you're concerned about the looks, the exterior of those facilities. We do pay attention to that. And in terms of planning, we hope that these facilities will not be too high and that they can be harmonious in terms of design with the surrounding environment. And there should be also more greenery. That is, exterior should have greenery so that they will give people a very pleasant, harmonious look. And behind it, the Devil's Peak would not look out of place. So in our design of the actual facilities, we would consult relevant government departments, express to them our thoughts in mind.
Marco, thank you, Chairman. The seawall design. We have referenced the Port Works Design Manual of the latest version from the CEDD. This has taken into account the extreme weather and also the rising tide caused by massive typhoon like Mangkhut and so on. So we work on the basis of this manual, and we are able to cope with the super typhoon and also the extreme weather associated with it. For example, during Typhoon Mangkhut in Quarry Bay, it is hitting 3.88. Ragasa only 3.4. So we do have sufficient spare capacity to cope with the onslaught of typhoons. So we also got the Port Works expert and the observatory expert endorsement on this. As to the sea walls, other than the height of the seawall, to tie in with the operation of the vessel, so we cannot make it too high, obviously, for operational reasons. Other than that, the ties brought on by the typhoons, we have a buffer zone, and also we have the wall, the facilities to guard against the ties, and they can also be the boards that can be put up to ward off the massive ties. So this will enable us to cope with the situation up to 2100. Ms. Christine Fong, I would like to have a second go at the issue. I draw a line there after Ms. Fong. Ms. Elaine Chick, Chairman. Now for the Pak Shek Kok MTR station, the Secretary said that we should not confine ourselves to the old mindset. We don't have to confine ourselves to the mindset of putting public housing in every development. I think this is really thinking out of the box. Now for this, Area 137 and Area 132, I hope that this Pak Shek Kok mindset can be applied here. The DAP has always been advocating the seizing the opportunities arising from Area 137 to develop our transport system like Tseung Kwan O East and Tseung Kwan O and Hong Kong East. Now for the Tseung Kwan O extension, I hope that this can be extended all the way to Hong Kong East. Now that will address the issue of an absence of rail connection for Suicide One residents, and also we would offer more transport options to the residents. So at Area 137, at least there would be more room to be made available. and there would be room for you to have more options there. I am also concerned about Area 132. There are 5 public facilities, including the refuse transfer station, the public fuel transfer facility, as well as the concrete batching plant. The residents are very concerned about the dust and odor that will be wafting all the way to Hong Kong East. From the paper, the EIA report has been endorsed, and the impacts are controllable. But for the refuse transfer station and concrete batching plant, they are facing Shu Sai Wan and Hang Fa Chun. So when assessing odor and air pollution, has the administration taken into consideration the impact on Shu Sai Wan and also Hang Fa Chun to make sure that the pollutants will not be wafting all the way to the island east, and they will not be on the receiving end of the dust and air pollution? And for the day-to-day operation, in particular the concrete batching plant and the construction waste handling facilities, will there be negative pressure facilities to make sure that the impact on the people across the sea would be mitigated? Area 132, they need the frontage operation. It is likely that there would be frequent vessel trips there if the operations are taking place in the middle of the night for the refuse transfer purposes. Would there be any noise pollution generated? Would there be any measures to mitigate the impact, potential impact on the residents across the sea? Right, rail across the harbour. You've addressed these, so please make it brief. Right, Chairman, the member is concerned about the transport. I'm afraid I don't pretend to have a better answer to this regarding the southern extension to see whether it will be going across the harbour. The TLB did conduct a study, and the feasibility doesn't seem to be high. Now, you mentioned Area 132, the public facilities. In terms of EIA, what are the situations like? Would there be any proper control? I defer to Mr. Leung. Thank you. Thanks very much for the question. Now, there are 2 aspects during the work stage. We will be monitoring the environmental impact. The member mentioned the residential estates. We are prepared to talk with the owners' corporations and designate some monitoring points. We are only too delighted to share the data to make sure that we fall within the EIA requirements. That's at the work stage. Now, during the operation stage, all these facilities will need to have independent EIA. Again, they have to measure up to scratch regarding air and dust. There will be measures to make sure that they are up to par. Ms. Chick. So Hang Fa Chun and Island East, there have not been any assessment or any tests. Mr. Leung. Chairman, as we reported in the EIA study, we look at the local area as well as further afield, like Island East and Hang Fa Chun. The report has been posted on the EDB web. Well, are you saying that the pollution that may be caused by the haulage will be or has been covered? Right. Ms. Christine Fong, 2 minutes. Chairman, thank you. I did ask this before, which remains unanswered. In the course of construction and also in the course of operation, what is the percentage of haulage by sea? Can you increase the transportation by sea to minimize the impact on land? Now, for this 2.5 kilometers marine viaduct, Will there be any surveillance cameras to detect the haulage vehicles spilling polluted or pollutants? This is really from the Tseung residents. The Area 137, the pedestrian linkage with Clearwater Bay. Now we're talking about 9-point-something billion worth of work. The Clearwater Bay Road is really chock-a-block with traffic, and there is going to be an intake of population. Will you be resolving this traffic problem? Areas 137, 132, the sea walls, because of climatic change, we understand that there would be some water-containing walls. Now, the problem is pretty horrendous. Now, there will be a super long cycle track in order to help the residents, in particular those in the lowest park. I mean, it is prone to flooding. It would be hard for you to ask the residents to resolve the flooding problems themselves. So will you be taking back the yellow area to improve the connectivity of the cycle track, and also to improve the flooding issue, like the breakwater and so on, like in other parts of Hong Kong? Permanent Secretary. Well, the first question is about the 5 facilities in Area 132, how much of the activities will be by sea or how much by land. Let's take an example. The construction waste handling facility, for instance. The construction waste may come from different parts of Hong Kong, so we anticipate that some of the waste will be coming in by land. But after they reached the handling facility, it will not be stored there. Rather, it may be packaged, it may be compressed, and it will be moved on to the next stop by sea. So many of the activities will be taking place by land as well as by sea. I go along with the member that we should preferably resort to sea route. But if we have to use the land route, we do have the 2.5 kilometer viaduct, and that would take the haulage traffic away from the town center. I heard what members have to say. We should use the land route as much as possible, and the percentage is pretty high. I mean the other way around. We should use the sea route as much as possible. Have I got it wrong? Sorry. Well, you also made a specific suggestion, like the surveillance camera, for us to monitor the haulage vehicle, to make sure that they are up to scratch, to make sure that they will not be spilling the pollutants on the way. I know where you're coming from. Maybe some surveillance might be of assistance. Pedestrian connectivity, you're asking whether there would be an alternative route. Now, in this regard, we are prepared to consider, but at the end of the day, whether this is feasible would depend very much on the needs. So we would look at the one-pole roads first, to see whether there are any alternatives, to make sure that the whole network would be more resilient. Seawall, I defer to the project manager. Chairman, about the seawall, we need to cater for the extreme weather, and also Area 132 we have the eco seawalls. Other than the 500-meter natural shoreline, as my colleague said, in some areas we will allow certain marine species to have the habitat there, and to restore the eco system to achieve biodiversity. Thank you. Before I ask members to indicate whether they support this paper being submitted to the PwC for discussion, before I do so, there are 2 points I'd like to make. Today's discussion, or in today's discussion, a lot of members are expressing concerns about traffic and transport. Now, in the course of moving population there, and indeed until the rail extension is done, I'm sure that the traffic and transport would be important, and we do need to have the data to enable us to cater for the population increase and also the needs for public transport. If prior to you going to the PwC can make available these kind of data for members to get to grips with the details, to set aside their worries, that's going to be really good. Also, the projects are pretty complicated: reclamation, site formation, infrastructure, roads, community facilities, park, and all the rest of it. I hope that before you take this to the PwC, you will give us further details in this regard in your paper. There are members who have made some comparison. That we don't have sufficient data, but we were making some comparison. I mean, it would be a good idea to make comparison in absence of the details. So let me put this to members. Do you support this paper being submitted to the PwC for discussion? All right, support. Thank you.
So next item, let's invite the administration to come in. So this is the item on subsidiary legislation for implementation of the title registration system. So members who want to speak, you may press the button. May I now ask the Permanent Secretary to take us through the paper? And before she does that, well, I know that this is a very technical issue. And last year, when we passed the amendment bill, it already set the stage for the regulatory framework, and there are concrete figures which have been confirmed. So I please, in taking us through your plan, please be concise and focus on the subsidiary legislation, the actual workflow for that. So please seize the time. I think I don't want you to spend more than half an hour on it, on the paper. So maybe within 15 minutes, try to finish your presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, you already told us the background. That is last September, LegCo passed the title ordinance. And after the ordinance was passed, it empowered us to implement the land titles system. But before we implement that new system, there are a lot of subsidiary legislations that need to be passed as well. So we had the framework passed last year. Now, through the passage of the security legislation, the land titles ordinance could be truly implemented. After consulting your views today, we hope that as for timetable, by October, the subsidiary legislation can be put before LegCo. Should they be passed, we hope that by then we can begin our next stage of work, where, as mentioned by the chairman, there are a lot of other matters to deal with, since it's highly technical matter, and we need to step up our publicity education as well among the public. So a bit of context, you know that the land registration system is one that is deeds-based in what is called the deeds registration system. So if you have bought and sold properties, you know that often the lawyer needs to check the deeds back to more than a decade ago for you to confirm that the owner is the true owner of the flat. So after the bill was passed last year, the land titles ordinance spares that burden of checking, because under this new system, the owner whose name is put under the titles would enjoy indivisible title, so the de facto owners. This is not a system unique to Hong Kong. In many other places, this system has been implemented, like in China, in Singapore. It has been implemented for a long time, so Hong Kong was lagging behind. So as I said, this titles registration system, I hope that after the legislation is passed, the new system will come into force by early next year, or first half of next year. But we want to be prudent. That is, the new system will only be applicable to new land. In other words, that is, once the main ordinance is passed, only new land under government lease granted or after the day on which the amended LTO comes into operation will come under the new system. And for existing land, well, when will we have a conversion? Well, after the bill was passed last year, we did promise that this year, when we come back to we will brief the panel on our future workflow. So I'd like to come here today to listen to your members' views and for making the conversion possible. And besides listening to your views, I'll hand over time to the registrar. He can give you more details about the new scheme. Good afternoon, members. Well, we just heard about the contest. Now let's go straight to page 5. That is for new land. That is refers to the 3 types of land. They are land sold through, land sold through is through land granted or after the operation came into force, or by way of private treaty grant or by land exchange. That is, if you are a true owner, if you pay for the flat, and then basically on the register, your name is on the register, then you are the bona fide owner. But if you fail to fulfill the criteria, the court can change the register. Next page. This is so important that whatever is the register is supposed to be permanent. So if any changes to be made, then there needs to be a court order. That is, if there is any case of fraud or human negligent errors, then the court can order that the information on the register be changed. If anyone, because of fraud or errors, negligence resulting in mistakes in the register, then indemnity could be offered to the affected person. So there will be an indemnity fund can offer the compensation with a ceiling of $50 million. If it's due to a negligent error by our staff, then the land registrar will offer the compensation with no ceiling out of its particular fund. And the land fund is self-financing, so therefore, we will collect 0.014% of charge of any land sale with a ceiling of $7,000. There are also a series of measures against fraud. For example, for all applications, all the information would need to be verified with a verification certificate issued, and they also need to a document to confirm the owner of a property. If there's an application for indemnity, application needs to an order from the court needs to be sought. And if there's a doubt that a particular transaction is a case of fraud, then the registration could be suspended. And should there be any changes to the information on the register, then you will email the owner to inform them of the latest change. Now I'll hand over time to our Deputy Principal Solicitor, Mr. Lee, to highlight the key points of subsidiary legislation. In October, we will present to LegCo the various subsidiary legislation. Four of them are new, and we also amend existing subsidiary legislation as well. On top of that, the first one, the new one, is the Land Titles Ordinance. I will take you through some suggestions. That is in line with the government's goal to be online. So therefore, we will suggest an e-platform will be activated for the payment of fees and verification of information. And for all applications, as mentioned by the registrar, all information has to be verified. Therefore, with the amended land titles ordinance that has been set, our proposal is that we need to verify the identity of the person, his personal ability, powers, and who can do the verification, because the accuracy of information on the register is totally important. Therefore, we suggest that solicitors, public duty officers, or the registrar could perform the role or the work of verification. And the registrar can, on the basis of application, make requests. With the amended ordinance, this power has been provided for. That is, when we receive an application for register, we can make suggestions for the applicant to provide supplementary information if needed. And we propose that there should be a time frame. That is, if an applicant cannot within the time frame answer our questions to our satisfaction, then we can turn down the application. Is for now 14 working days as the time frame, but we'll discuss with the sector before finalizing the time frame. And then, that is in sale and purchase transaction, what documents should be provided by the seller to the vendor. Unlike now, you need to keep 15 years of deeds, so there will be much less documents required for the transaction, but there's still a small number of documents like government land lease, DMCs to be provided to confirm the identity of the owner. We will consult stakeholders before we create the checklist. We suggest that the number of documents required should be kept at a minimum, and they don't have to be the original copies, and they should be registered documents. So even if any of the documents go missing, the owner can still apply for it from us, and that can ease or resolve the problem of missing documents, which can create a lot of troubles. So there can be a certificate proving the identity of the real owner. And as for we suggest that when there is the registration for a new ownership, we will issue the identity to the owner, and the vendor can actually ask for any new documents later, but there needs to be proof for that. This is the sample of the ownership certificate. You can see the number, information about the owner, titles, date, and so forth. Now I'm going to talk about making checkups or checking on the register. Now everyone can go to land registry to do search, online search. But now we want to strike a balance before privacy, transparency, and effective operations and so forth for the checking of property information. And there's a three-tiered search mechanism.
The first one is the Tier 1 documents, just like the land search that we're doing now. Tier 2 document contains the supporting documents and application forms. And they must be related to the current entries. Tiers 1 and 2 are available to the public. For Tier 3, they cover the historical records and application forms. These are the historical entries. For verification of the titles, there is no need to go back on these. Now, these contain personal data, so we allow access to the specified persons. Now, this has been put in the amended land title ordinance. Now, we are covering the specified person and specified purposes. The specified purposes include the conveyancing and so on, and also safeguarding public interests. This is really all-encompassing, covering all the different purposes. And if you do not fall within all the categories, there is always the safeguarding public interest. If you fall within the specification, then you can get access to Tiers 1 and 2. For Tier 3, that's for the right-hand side column, the current owners can get access to the information, and solicitors and accountants would need to go back to the previous record for business reasons. We also have a new piece of subsidiary legislation regarding the indemnity. Under the amendment, we specify who will get the indemnity, and there is the flow chart here. An application is submitted, and within 6 months, I will decide on the level of indemnity. If one is not happy, then one can seek court's verdict. Otherwise, the payment will be payable. If there are mistakes or omissions, who can seek indemnity? Now, again, we have the workflow here, and again, 6 months and 4 months for them to go to the court. I don't propose to repeat it here. Under the subsidiary legislation, we will cover the costs and the professional remuneration, and there are limits, namely $2 million and $20,000. Without the cap, people will not be we will not be saving on the costs, and this would add to the burden of the indemnity fund. We also have a new subsidiary legislation, and that is land titles, fees, and levies regulation. We have new proposals, basically to achieve user pay principle and cost recovery. The fees and charges will be higher than the current level, but we try to achieve a parity between the existing and the new fees. There will be differential pricing to encourage e-lodgement. And the basis for payment will be on a per individual title register basis instead of per instrument basis. Let's say there is a title affecting a unit at a car park. It will be charged once. In future, it will be charged for 2. For specific items, there would be a special arrangement for the payment. Let's look at the comparison between the old and the new. For e-lodgement, there will be a discount offered. For conveyancing, the fee level will be similar, 2,800 versus 2,600. It will be even cheaper for e-lodgement. Now, for the new basis of charging, there are 3 levels. This would avoid a situation where the registration of an OP, the fees would be unreasonable. Now, we have this standard payment to achieve cost recovery. We're also amending 4 existing pieces of subsidiary legislation. Land titles regulation will add the element of e-lodgement and also to protect privacy, and the practices are actually the same. For privacy protection, under the current system, we have to go back to the old title documents to determine the titles. So this will not cover the Tier 3 documents, and there is no need to have the specified persons. We only need to look at the specified purposes. And there will be differential pricing to offer some discount for e-lodgement. Finally, we propose the amendment of the 2 rules for the High Court and the District Court. So much by way of presentation. I hand you back to the registrar. Chairman, about the conversion of the existing land to the title registration system, the next step is to achieve the conversion. As members can imagine, this is a terribly complicated issue. We work on the basis of the register. We have to make sure that the register, the owner is actually the bona fide owner. So for the old titles, they do present some challenges. Internally, we have conducted some screening exercise of the 3 billion land registers. We have covered 600,000, about 20%. We don't see any indeterminate ownership registers. For the older registers, we have covered 46,000, and indeed 149 registers are found to be broken title chains. So there is this problem of indeterminate ownership. So we have to consider how best we can cope with issues like this. I think we have to be more pragmatic. We should deal with the easier part first, and we will deal with the registers after the year 2000. If there are problems, how can we fix them? How can we indemnify them? With the introduction of the new system, we will move on to the new model, and we'll be discussing with the stakeholders how we will take this forward. So by the time the proposals are mature, we will certainly bring members up to date and share with members. Thank you. Right, it's time for questions. There are 6 members on the list. Mr. Tseung Kwok, Mr. Augustine Wong, Mr. Mark Chong, Ms. Maggie Chen, Ms. Christine Fong, and Mr. Yu Ming. 5 minutes for the Q&A. Mr. Tseung Kwok. Chairman, thank you. I support using the negative vetting to improve the land titles ordinance, and also to encourage e-lodgement. I must admit that this is a very complicated issue, but the land titles ordinance has been enacted for more than 20 years, and we need to take the first step. Like the registrar said, we have to deal with the easier part first. In recent years, we can see that there are some solicitor firms that have folded, and some owners have lost the title deeds, and many people are concerned about the security of their own title deeds. I've got a couple of points of concern to me that this new system would cover the new land, and this would represent a good start. I am more concerned about the existing millions of owners. How can they convert into the new system? The registrar said that they have conducted a screening exercise for the land registered after 2000. They have not picked up any indeterminate ownership issues, and the government is minded to cover these first as a first step. Now, my question is, how are we going to get this done? What is our intention like? With the commencement of the ordinance, are we compelling them to convert, or is it going to be on a voluntary basis, or are you going to be adopting a multi-pronged approach? Please, thank you. Permanent Secretary. Thanks very much for the question. Simply put, we don't have any finalized plan yet, but we can see that we conducted a screening for the register after 2000. That's 1/5. Now we have covered about 50%. That they didn't show any ownership problems. Now, if this is really the case, then we would be inclined to do the conversion for register after the year 2000. If they have clean titles, then they will be prepared to do this. But like the registrar said, maybe we would allow a time frame for people. Let's say we do this from the year 2000. Shall we allow some time for people to say that they don't really want to do the conversion? As for some people, that their interest might be compromised after the conversion. We allow people the option, maybe, for even for these register after 2000. Now, for those registers before 2000, it would be hard to say specifically. We have covered about 2%. We picked up 149 registers that have broken title chains. Maybe there are multiple chains. There may be multiple owners. So how to deal with the registers granted before the year 2000? I think we need to have more time to complete the screening exercise before we can say categorically one way or the other. Like the registrar said, our priority right now remains to bring this into place for the new land. So we will complete the subsidiary legislation and get the publicity out of the way, and the land registry will also need to put together all the application forms. Now, in the first half of the year, once this amendment has been in place, we'll then move on to look at the conversion of the existing land to the title registration system. So for the time being, we can only say this on a preliminary basis regarding the way forward. Mr. Augustin Wong. Chairman, thank you. I support the idea of implementing the title registration system for the new land. Now, for new land, there are no problems. For the old register, there are still problems. If you extend this to the old registers, it may not be possible, and you should allow people to make the petition. So today, are we focusing, like the chairman said, on the details for the amendments, like the fees and charges, like the purpose of search. If an average citizen were to purchase a property and they want to conduct some search to verify the status of the potential of the owner, would that be okay that they're not doing this through a solicitor or an agent? There is no agreement signed. Can this be done? Is it really possible?
As for the fees, well, it happens that when there are 10 properties involved, fees goes up, and after that, the same fee applies. Would the range be too big, from 10 to 1,000 properties? Can there be any adjustment? Because or under 10, the fee is $800, but if it's beyond 10, it jumped to 3,000. But if it's 1,000 units, it's still $3,000 as fee. So is the range too big? 2 points. P.S. So the registrar can answer the second question later. For the first one, you asked about, say, that if I'm just an ordinary member of the public, I want to buy a property and check on its record in the registry. So let me show you the PowerPoint. Can you go back to page 17 of the PowerPoint? In our presentation, we said that in the future, for the title register, there will be a 3-tier search mechanism. So look at the details here. They can cover all the transaction records in the past. That is, for flat 18C, if there were 5 transactions in the past, then the first tier of search will let you look at the existing or old owners of the transactions. Say, and also the price paid for the property and the time of transaction and how much time is left of the land deeds. So information of interest to a potential owner. So all this can be found in the first tier of search. As written here, members of the public, as mentioned on the right-hand side, if they meet the purpose or fulfill the purpose of search, then they can do this level of search. Now, designated purpose of search on the left-hand side, that is when if you are selling your property, then you already fulfill the criteria and you're a member of the public. If you click this checklist, this box, then you are entitled to find out who is the bona fide owner, the present owner of the property. So in designing this search mechanism, we considered that we knew that in Hong Kong, the property market is very active. Every month, there are more than 400,000 people doing the search, property search. So therefore, under the condition of protecting privacy, we can still allow the public to make proper search, a legitimate search. Okay, I'll hand over time to the registrar. In formulating the 3-tier mechanism, we abide by the principle of recovering the cost. So for some procedures that can be compressed, we'll go for that. So know the number of transactions or units can vary. So we come up with a certain fee for a particular number of properties. So assume that, say, a developer which needs to submit a large number of applications, if we make the system too detailed, or if we charge more for thousands of applications, then the developer will still pass on the cost to the owner. So I think we need to look at the total number, and even if the owner, for the owner involved, we need to come up with a reasonable mechanism and charging structure. Next one, Zhang Ho-feng. Even though for the ceiling of indemnity of $15 million will cover most properties, but for properties in the new territories where there are large commercial plots or even ancestral plats of flat land, which may exceed the cost of the ceiling. So if the owner feels that the indemnity is not adequate, then they can still sue the government for a higher amount of compensation. So if that happened, then the indemnity fund would be thrown into problems. And whoever has registered the title, then the title is indefeasible. So, but then some people would worry that should they be actually cheated by fraudster, then if they have sold the property to a fraudster, then how can you ensure that lawyers or property agents that they have fulfilled their duties of carrying out due diligence and checking for the background information? And also you said that the fund is operating on a self-financing principle. But if it's the negligence of lawyers or property agents that result in fraud cases, then in the end, why should the public fund be shouldering the financial cost? Is there any mechanism by the government to hold these professionals accountable for their own negligence or misconduct? Ms. Ho? Yes, your first question about the indemnity fund. We do have the indemnity and ceiling that is not exceeding $15 million. Well, this is a decision actually made last year when the ordinance was passed. That will be an indemnity fund in operation with a ceiling for properties. You mentioned just now that why should we set the level at $15 million? This is based on the data we've checked. $15 million should cover almost 99% of the property transactions in Hong Kong. So since it already is such a high percentage, if you want to help with other more expensive transactions, then the issue is this indemnity fund. Where does the money come from? It comes from people buying properties. If we want to elevate the ceiling, then the levy will be more than 0.014%. That means other potential owners will need to buy a higher levy in order to increase the facility of the indemnity fund. So that would lead to the question of whether it's fair to potential owners. So that's our thinking behind the indemnity fund. And you're also concerned about fraud cases in property transactions. As our colleague said, we have a lot of preemptive measures to prevent fraud. That is, in the future, we would, after the titles system comes into effect, we will issue ownership certificate. And last year, when we proposed the amendment bill for the ordinance, we also brought in this idea of penalty for fraud cases in property transactions. There will be penalties imposed. And also, as mentioned in our presentation, there are other measures too in place for fraud cases under the titles system. since the previous owner is a true buyer, bona fide buyer, but now the system is based on the titles in the register. So that's the paramount principle. So the ownership would goes to the title owner in the register. So under this arrangement, the bona fide owner could, in case of fraud, obtain indemnity from our indemnity fund. After the new system goes into effect, actually before that, we talked to the police force, commissioner of police, and we had long discussions with them on how we can, through enforcement, to tackle fraud cases. Looking at the figures now, actually, I think the situation is under control, but the police has reminded us that, especially, say, if the indemnity amount, is so high that it covers even expensive properties, then that could attract unscrupulous individuals to engage in frauds. So we need to strike a balance in various ways. Yeah, fraud is one thing, but how about the intermediaries, solicitors? Sorry, you may need for the next round. So let me announce that I need to extend this meeting by 15 minutes. Next one is Maggie Chan. Thank you, Chairman. My question is, firstly, about new land and existing land and the articulation between them. This title registration system is very important. Therefore, definitely, I suggest that please look at back in 2000 or even before then, the register then. We need to focus all our time and energy and manpower on making sure that the subsidiary registration and the LTO are smoothly implemented. Otherwise, if they're not smoothly implemented, then it will be chaotic. So it's such an important, alertness for us. And in the paper, it talks about the land titles ordinance and the applications for verification, under which it says that the registrar can raise questions to the applicant. And if the registrar make requests to the applicant, then the applicant will need to, within a definite time frame, give answers. And proposed time frame now is 14 working days. I want to know for this working days, will it be a definite time frame under the subsidiary legislation, or can the registrar extend the period if needed? And also, can the registrar keep asking questions until that the owner feels unsure when he can confirm his title? In Hong Kong, title transfer and registration is very important, and certainty of that is very important. And so you need to have a definite time frame, because if the registrar can or is entitled to keep asking questions indefinitely, then that can erode the certainty. If the land registry can keep asking questions, then nobody knows when that will end and when the titles can be confirmed. And that's already the situation now. So for new land, I think that can undermine the actually determination of ownership. And secondly, in the paper, it's also said that when you sell a property, the vendor needs to provide documents to the buyer, and it said that besides the certificate proving the ownership, there are also a checklist of documents to be provided. So under the subsidiary legislation, will there be a checklist of documents provided? Any backup measures? And the other question is, so we are not now talking about the new land to be covered by the new law, and there are documents to be provided for it. So in comparison with Hong Kong law, Chapter 219, Conveyancing Ordinance, Section 13 and Section 13A, where is also mentioned the requirement for proof of ownership and the documents required. At the same time, we are dealing with two systems. Now, CAP 219, 13, Section 13, Section 13A, how would you deal with them?
係
Three questions there. Permanent Secretary. Thank you for the comments. The registrar might wish to supplement later on. I go along with what Ms. Maggie Chen said. The priority right now should be to make sure that the title registration scheme can get off the ground for new land. We have to make sure that this is going ahead smoothly. There is still a considerable amount of work to do other than the subsidiary legislation. The registrar will need to get on with the administrative measures, the application forms, the guidelines, all the rest of it. They have to be implemented. We'll seize the time to get this done. Registrar? Chairman, thank you. To address Ms. Chen's question, 12 working days, this will be written into the subsidiary legislation that the applicant will be allowed to have one extension. We will not be asking questions for the sake of it. The entire procedures will be streamlined. If the applicant submits enough information, then we'll try to get this done as soon as possible. In the existing system, there is no time frame. Under the law, there is no time period as to how soon the questions will be addressed. As I said, we have a lot of the register that are still pending there. So we impose a time frame and we impose a 14-day period, but we still talk with the trade to work out the best possible time frame. They don't really want to see it drag on for too long. As to the list of documents, they will also be written into the subsidiary legislation. CAP 214, I defer to Mr. Lee. 219, Chairman. Yes, 219. Yes, the list of documents, the member asked whether there would be any catch-all provision. This will not affect the chances of the buyer posing questions to the vendors, so they will not be restricted to the questions there. CAP 219, there will be consequential amendments to make sure that Section 13 will not be applicable to the new land. Ms. Christine Fong. Chairman, thank you. I support the subsidiary legislation to get the title registration system off the ground. The administration said that they will cover the register after the year 2000. And I think we should prioritize this. We should cover the new land first before we move on to anything else. Now you have the Land Titles Indemnity Fund. I think this is a step in the right direction because there will be indemnity offered. I get the feeling that for the existing titles, they may have the joint tenancy, and the children may be contesting the titles. They said that this is register based, and there may be disputes arising from that. The administration talked about a cap of $2 million. Can you elaborate further on this cap? Second, I am of the view that if there are two parallel systems in place, I think we have to take the first step first. The Lands Department has the gatekeeping. they have the $380 fees for the transaction, and the owners will be notified. On the basis of this, you mentioned that there would be cost recovery charges, like 10 registration. You charge $800, and Mr. Wong asked why 10 registrations you charge $1,000. And I get a feeling that the costs will be passed on to the owners themselves. How can you make sure that the fees will not be passed on to the potential owners? That you are working on the basis of cost recovery, you are self-financing. That the Lands Department has the IRIS to help the small owners. They're not just resorting to the e-documents. Permanent Secretary, I defer to the registrar regarding the IRIS, and I think it is free of charge. Perhaps we can address this later. The member mentioned the indemnity fund. We have a cap. The cap is $50 million for a title. Let's say the property is $70 million. The indemnity would also be $50 million. Now, you mentioned the $2 million cap, and that's in connection with the legal costs reimbursement. If a case is taken to the court for ratification, there would be some legal costs. There would be a cap of $2 million. We've got a point there that in many places they have a parallel existence of two systems. Hong Kong will be facing the same situation when we put in place the title registration system. Now, for a certain period of time, there would be a coexistence of the two systems in parallel. Registrar, yes, the IRIS, we're charging a fee, but under the LTO, we'll be waiving the fees for this system. If you want to receive an email, it would be free of charge. Now, this is a kind of anti-counterfeiting measure. We hope that the owners would be able to know whether there are any changes to the titles. That the developers will need to pay the fees, and there are other people who need to pay, like the government departments. The buildings department, for instance, they may have a whole bunch of orders that need to be paid for. Now, for the small houses, again, they will have to pay the fees. So it's not just the developers that would be submitting the applications in large numbers. There are other people as well. And with this three-tier system, we are charging the fees. Basically, we are charging on the basis of cost recovery. So there will not be any problems with that. Mr. Yu Ming. Chairman, thank you. It is a good thing to introduce the title registration system because this is looking after the interests of the owners. And I am concerned about the definition of new land. Now, the definition of new land is land held under a government lease granted after the LTO was amended. Now, for the land that is not developed, or for land on which buildings are being built, they would be regarded as new land. So for new land and existing land, how do you draw the line there? If there is a S&P signed before the LTO was amended, but I mean the execution will happen after the amendment. What's going to happen to this? And paragraph 35 and 36, there are 8,000 cases that have indeterminate registers. Now, how are you going to be notifying the owners who are in these cases? Would there be any legal assistance to resolve the indeterminate ownership issues? Permanent Secretary. Now, for the first question, new land, how do we define new land? Basically, now let's say this LTO amendment is effective, then the land granted after this commencement would be regarded as new land. Now there is empty land or property after the transaction after the LTO commences, then they would be regarded as existing land. Now we're prioritizing new land, so this land title registration system will not apply to them. Now with the conversion, how are we going to be doing this? What will be the timetable like? As I said, we are prioritizing the implementation of the title registration system, and in the first half of next year, we will be implementing this for the new land, and then the registrar will have more time to cover the study on the existing land. If we have any plans, we'll be talking with the stakeholders as well as the legal community. Will that come back to the panel for further discussion? You also asked the question a moment ago about the broken title chains and how we deal with that. I think we need time to deal with that. We do have some ideas, maybe at a later stage. We're prepared to share with members. Mr. Mark Chong would like to have a second go. And I'll draw a line after my questions or comments. Let me extend the meeting for another 15 minutes. There are 2 points I'd like to make. First, when amending the legislation, it is indeed a terribly complicated an exercise. Now, one of the organizations did raise an awful lot of questions. After a year or so, the trade and the the Law Society have been involved in the discussion that we are introducing this subsidiary legislation. In the whole process, you have a lot of days, 14 days or whatever. I mean, all these time frames. Have you got any consensus with the stakeholders, like the Law Society, when it comes to the subsidiary legislation scrutiny stage? Are we going to be bringing this up for further discussion? Second, when 2 systems are existing in parallel, certainly would add to the complexity. So all along, we've been emphasizing that since the system is register-based, we have 2 registers in tandem, and this may be open to exploitation by some nefarious elements. So I hope that you would be doing more in the way of education and publicity. Of more concern to me is, as we mentioned this before, there may be some situations where the owner has passed away or the company has already folded or liquidated, and some may have gone to the government, and some of them are being processed. That the Board of Acadia kind of property can be exploited for deception. Now, when we introduce the new system, I hope that the administration will review the administrative process. If the property is taken over by the administration, then it would be fine. But if a property is registered under a company or an individual, and if there is information that the owner, be it company or individual, is no longer there, then I hope that you would make this sufficiently clear to avoid a situation that this would be exploited by the nefarious elements. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The first 2 points you mentioned are very important, particularly when we work on the subsidiary legislation and the Law Society communicated with us, and Registrar can tell you more. They do have close communication, and what they talk about is not just limited to the specifics of the subsidiary legislation, but also includes some guidelines and the wording to be used for the legislation. But Registrar can supplement on that, and he can also brief members on education. He himself is leading a team entrusted with publicizing and also educating the public about the new titles system. And your third point about properties with no owners, I understand your concern, especially as from the Development Bureau's perspective, for an owner who's passed away and nobody assumed ownership, then those properties should be managed by the Lands Department. And there's room for improvement in our work, because in the past, when we tried to identify such properties, well, we could have been more proactive and system to ensure that for properties without an owner, they should be actually managed by the Lands Department ASAP to avoid the possibilities of fraud or deception. And we follow that up. So, Registrar, please. Yeah, all along with stakeholders, besides the Law Society, we also communicated with the property sector, and details in the law require close collaboration between us. And even to the format of the forms, we are still working on it. We ensure that before we submit the subsidiary legislation to Legislature in October, all the workflow, the entire workflow must be recognized by the sector. And we also have begun our work since last year. Late last year, we distributed questionnaires to various sectors and see if they see any need for training. By the beginning of this year, 2 months ago, our educational committee has gone through the training needs of various sectors, what the messages we need to convey to the public. As you say, it's a very complex matter. So we need to make sure that we can help the public understand what the change is. And we exchanged views with various members of our committee due to the complexity of the issue, and also for new land. When new land is given out, and then it will take some time before properties will be built and sold. So we need to continue our educational work to let the public know that for the new land under the new system, what sort of guarantee is provided for future owners and what are the advantages. So I think at the public level, we will continue to do our publicity work 2 members have asked to speak. Chung Ho Fong first. You have 2 minutes. Thank you. Just now, the PS talks about situations of fraud. But I think besides that, I want to know, should there be professionals who, because of their negligence or lack of prudence and a deceptive deal was brokered? So as an intermediary, will they, or would you give them any guidelines or any penalties for these people? Solicitor? For, well, unscrupulous individuals or professionals who are involved in a fraud case, then we are entitled to hold them accountable. Christine Fong. To me, I'd like to thank the registrar for saying that government departments who need to register and for you have a lump sum fee of $3,000. I welcome your suggestion because when it comes to property maintenance or management, under new legislations, even property managers need to check on the ownerships for their work. So I hope that you can provide assistance to them if needed. And secondly, I'm concerned that early on, Ombudsman said that the responsibility of slope maintenance falls on some small owners who are not aware of that. And the government says that they will provide more information to owners to help them know about their responsibility. So the layout plans for slope maintenance for new properties, well, that the plan may be easier to get hold of after SI. But if the number of slopes in need of maintenance increase, and if they're added to the plans for properties for owners' reference, I think that could be a document that can be included. Would you help them for such purpose? And who will pay the price for such checking and inclusion of information? You just now mentioned about the Ombudsman's proposal. We will follow up on that, including, I think the report itself is mainly about private slopes. So whose responsibility it is to do the maintenance and repair, but it should be the owner's responsibility indeed. But there are issues where sometimes owners are unaware that the slope behind their buildings belong to them in terms of the responsibility for maintenance. So now, once the government has confirmed that private owners should be responsible for the private slopes, then we will inform the owners concerned by writing to let them know about their responsibility so they can plan ahead on when and how to carry out the maintenance and ensure slope safety. But would it be attached, this information be attached to the plan? Well, please, let's clarify. We are talking about titles registration. We are only targeting new land for projects which are underway now, so they would not come under new land. For the old properties, they are not to be handled by the new legislation. Please don't get things confused. Okay, I think that's the end of our discussion. I'd like to ask members, would you all support putting forward this latest legislative proposal? Yeah, you do. All right, thank you. So thank you, officials, for attending this meeting. ALB, if there's no ALB from members, then meeting adjourned. Thank you.